Oh, thank the gods I found you boys.
And what will you do with us now?
Why, grant you safe passage, just as I said.
Pretty generous offer for an Imperial.
Come now. Is it fair to begrudge a man the circumstances of his birth?
Well, no. I guess not.
So, what do we do after he drops us off?
Go get the car. Can't leave her unattended for long. Chancellor, if you truly wish to aid us in our efforts, then I request you release us this instant.
This instant? It's a long way down. Perhaps the army could break your fall. Or perhaps you could simply sit back and enjoy the ride. You needn't worry. You're in good hands with me. Here's hoping you find that car of yours.
High Commander Ravis Nox Fleury issued the following statement regarding the Imperial blockades across the region.
We believe the insurgents behind the Citadel attack have taken refuge in Disguise. The blockade shall help us root out the criminals. I realize the inconvenience imposed upon the citizenry, but we must each do our part for the good of all.
The High Commander also stressed the Imperial Army would continue its recovery efforts in the Crown City. The frequent quakes which rocked the Disguise and Clean regions in recent days have finally quieted. In response, the Empire provided the following comment.
The cause of the tremors was the Archean, who had awakened in a fit of rage. The Imperial Army took swift action and laid the unruly giant to rest, thus averting disaster.
Eyewitness reports confirm Titan has disappeared from the Disk of Kothis.
I still can't believe it. I mean, shouldn't the car have turned up by now?
We should wait until Cindy's done asking around the local garages before we despair.
Let's not fool ourselves. The Empire has it.
Then maybe we could ask Arden to help us out again, right?
The Imperial Chancellor.
He represents a problem, not a solution.
So where does that leave us?
Stranded, awaiting word from Hammerhead.
In the meantime, we'll have to hoof it.
Look, it's Umbra.
With all that said, welcome back to part 15 of Final Fantasy 15. We've made it, guys. We've got the numbers to line up. That being said, as you heard on the news reports, because of the Imperial hunt, the Disguise region is locked off to the rest of the world. We're in the Disguise region, so we can't get access back to Cindy. We can't get access to the Stalin, and we can't get access to Klein, but we couldn't get into Klein anyway. But that's essentially the shindig. You're not allowed access to anywhere that requires a road tunnel, because all the tunnels are blocked off. So you're heavily restricted for now into just the Disguise region, and we don't even have a car, so you'll be restricted to chocobo riding to get around quick. And this Gensiana, a very helpful individual that will help us on our path.
Will the path to the stone be opened? The Oracle goes hence in her king's name.
Luna. Where is she now?
The eye of the storm. When the covenant is forged, the Oracle and ring shall await their king at the walls of water. Stray not from the path.
She's a messenger. A spirit. Faithful to the Oracle.
For real?
We're going beyond real now, pal.
Let Luna know I'm okay. And she won't have to wait much longer. We'll be together soon.
The crystal was gifted to mankind, that we might know lasting prosperity.
If the crystal belongs to everyone, how come only Lucis gets to use it?
The kings of Lucis do not simply use the crystal, they also protect it.
Wait, so my dad's guarding it?
Yes.
I had no idea.
To crown the King of Light is the calling of the crystal, and keeping the crystal safe until that day falls to the line of Lucis.
And I'm the chosen.
Yes, only the true king, anointed by the crystal, can purge our star of its scourge.
You really think I can do that?
As Oracle, I will see to it. To aid the king is the Oracle's calling.
Then I guess I can do it. I won't let you down.
I know you won't.
Unto the king alone this voice is heard. To follow the words is to follow the chosen path. Bridging heaven and earth it strikes, the storm's ephemeral yet eternal light. To the light must go the king.
I did say to take Arden's warning seriously about Point of No Return, because he's got a lot more plot to do before we can have access to the rest of the open world. Because we need our car back, but before that we need to get another one of the 6 on our side. So that's 2 main objectives we've already got to do. And we've already had the fight against Titan. But it's still quite a stretch yet. But in the meantime, we need, as they just said, we've got to head into the storm. We've got to find Ramuh, the second of the 6. And you're going to see me do a lot of cuts, because riding around the whole of the Sky region on a chocobo takes a small eternity to get around, because it's not the car, it's not as fast. So I only kept in important conversations on the journey, any important fight we have along the way, and obviously what we're going towards. The Imperials are blocking off the first 2 like electric shards you're trying to find. So I refrained from calling them crystals, because that's a different thing entirely in this game. And I kept this in because I was quite happy that I managed to destroy this thing quite quickly with a lucky cross chain. Or what was it called? Link Strike? Cross Link? I can't remember. They think they added in an update that was in episode to Sky, but then they got rid of because it was OP, and then put back in after they attempted to balance it. And it's still very powerful, but it's a lot better than it was. And they've even landed the Imperial ships here. That's a very rare thing. But thankfully it's not too far away. The first rune stone, the objective calls it. So I only just glanced at it as I said that. And then a lot's going to be happening. We won't really start to have freedom of the road again for a little while yet. And you know, I was hoping Noctis would do the jump slash, and he just didn't. Because sometimes if you're far enough away and you go to use the heavy weapon, he'll jump at them and do like a proper jump and strike, sort of Legend of Zelda styled. And he just decided against doing it. And he goes on saying, do a strike chain, a cross chain even. And I just said no, because I've only just done one. That's the thing, like, the game's a bit overly generous sometimes in cross chain, so I just don't bother after time. Sorry, there's not much to really say at this part. They're just fighting more Imperials. This is going to be an issue for like the rest of the game. When we're fighting Imperials, we know how Imperials work, regardless of how much they up their level or make them stronger. Once you've dealt with the Imperial troopers once, you've dealt with them every time. So there's really not that much I can add to it. It's just cleaning them up so we can move on to get the runestone. Which I think I go like on a slight divergence as well on one of these, because I noticed there's a treasure on the minimap pretty close. So I go toward, yeah. On the minimap there's a little treasure and side icon, so I go towards that as well, and it ends up being a little bit more annoying than it should have been to get to, but it doesn't take too much time, so we're here now. And it was a not worth it item. It was a material for for magic. I was about to say material for fusing, but that just tells me how I've been playing too much SMT recently. Because I've been playing the hell out of Strange Journey Redux. I've yet to finish it. I'm at the home stretch because I'm locked into the Chaos route, which I was all for doing up until I was locked into it, and then like the game put everything in front of me to like make me regret going for Chaos. And it's like I might have to do it again and go neutral in the end. So here's our first runestone, which we get another little information piece. This one I will talk over because if there's too many cutscenes in this part. And the SHAREfactory limits how many separate voice recordings I can do, so it will eventually just tell me where to stick it. And this is where Noct first met Gentiana, back when he was still wheelchair bound because his legs were shit.
Oh, I tried to.
And that book is the thing that explains who the Six are, which we already bumped into this book, to be fair. I think it was when we was down at the beach. Back in like part 3, I think it was. There was a book there that I scrolled past.
Enjoy such familiarity. The fate of our world may depend on it.
And yes, Gentiana isn't Brock. She does open her eyes every so often.
With Gentiana.
It's just sort of like some magic thing where she can kind of sense without having to open her eyes. She only opens it to sort of for the sake of opening it. She does it to sort of show honesty, not because she needs to. And after this mission from Gentiana, you're looking up for another lightning strike to head over towards that.
What is it? Another headache?
I heard her. Gentiana.
Divine voices in your head again?
Hopefully it won't amount to the same headache it did with the Archean.
Yeah, good one, Iggy.
Ramuh, chasing down deities is hard work.
Like Gladio makes a joke about it. Oh yeah, let's just chase down like fucking gods. But yeah, but as I mentioned, like Prompto admits like Luna's had it worse because she has to go talk to them in the first place and convince them to help out the king when he arrives. So I'm sure not all of them were quite happy about it. So I'm sure a few of them were like pissed off first time around, then eventually wavered round to it and went, okay, fine.
Another reminder to receive the blessing.
That divine power's just waiting for you.
I will show off how to use the divine power, but we have to do so much first. Like it doesn't give you access to use the deities. Like even though we've got Titan, it won't let us use Titan yet. We have to do a certain plot point, and then they become available to use.
Human? Not quite. Well, not exactly gods. Messengers are divine entities.
And I kept this bit in as well because it's just explaining the importance of messengers.
So she's Lady Luna Freya's partner in divine.
Yeah. There's a lot of world building or lore building trivia that goes on in this part as well that I'll try not to talk too much over, but I have also got to get a move on and commentate a game that I decided to let's play. But now once you've got 2, the third one is in an actual dungeon, and if you've played Episode to Sky, this is that dungeon from Episode to Sky. However, they've made it much bigger. In Episode to Sky, they give you the opening room and the closing room of it. Whilst in the main game, there's a whole chunk in the middle to do as well.
The last one's in the cave.
Let's hurry up.
And let's say in the cave, and everyone just knows where he means. Like, this is a big region, there's more than one cave.
Your phone on silent.
And that's Gladio, because Gladio's mentioned it a few times. He can't get in contact with Virus no matter what he tries. And he hasn't been left any messages. I don't know if I camp here. Do I? Yes, I do. Okay.
Less whining, more working.
Because I realised it was evening, so I decided to camp here to call it a rest point and then continue onwards. So don't worry, the part's not ending here. I know for a while that was the pattern of finishing at the end of the day, but we haven't been able to have a structured day or night pattern the past 2 parts because of plot doing its thing. Or me just getting lost too much in dungeon exploration, so we camp here halfway through and then we do the dungeon. And I think that's just enough to put Prompto to level 29, because he's the one furthest behind everyone else right now. What photos have been taken? Oh. I think I keep that one just because I was quite happy to get the cross chain on it. And I think that's it, yep. I am making an effort to save less photos now, because I'm very much aware of how many I've saved and how quickly we're going to end up hitting that limit if I'm not careful, because we've still got quite a lot to go and quite a lot of memorable pictures we'll probably want to save. Anyway, back on Chocobo. If you have different different Gashal greens, you can feed it to your Chocobo to give them different bonuses. Since we're not doing Chocobo races or in dire need of upgrading them, I just stick with the normal Gashal greens. Which, if you're ever curious as to why they're called Gashal greens, it's because they originate from Final Fantasy III, where there was a village called Gashal, and they were the ones that made the crops, that made stuff for the Chocobos, so they named them after their village.
This will make a fine paint.
Also, that's the thing, sometimes like the game will pick up all 3 shards or items in an area for you when you click on it once, which is why it came up saying Silver Shard 3 times. Also, for Shah Hollow, if you try and come here earlier on, there's a big block blocking it off. And the lightning strike broke it in half and broke it open, so you can go through it now. In episode to Sky, you could sequence break and go here first, but you wasn't supposed to.
As if danger lurks round every corner.
Avoid all corners. Got it.
There's a lot of loot hidden around here, but unlike some of the other dungeons we've done so far, this one's a lot more linear. You don't have to worry about getting lost unless you're doing it deliberately to get items, and it's very clear which is the right way and which is the wrong way, sort of thing. It's 99% a straight line in this area, if I'm honest. And a number of these areas as well, which I'm pretty sure they're just glorified load screens, but whatever.
Pretty easy for me, though.
Which is why that's also so long as well to get through. Also, you can hear the other characters going through it, but it's just a camera trick. You can't actually see them going through it because they're not. As soon as you walk away, they will just teleport in behind you to make it look like they were right behind you doing it. But they never once actually go into the animation and do it. They don't have an animation for it unless it's a scripted thing where they go ahead of you, sort of thing. Which, to be fair, it's a very old school gamey shortcut. Like the amount of attention on realism and all that bullshit that a lot of AAA Western games do, for them to just do something really gamey that saves some time and effort, it's like, that reminds me of games from my youth. That reminds me of games from my childhood. Because it's the sort of stuff they do there, where it's like, look, we know you don't care, so we're not going to bother.
That's it.
Oh, for God's sake.
I've come up with a new recipe.
You got a new recipe, guys.
Can't wait to try it.
And I think that's the one thing I can still compliment Square Enix on. Like, they might have their troubles and their issues and make some questionable decisions every so often, but when it comes to their first-party properties like this and KH, they just make them video games. They don't try and make them super realistic and all that shit, because they know that real gamers find that boring most of the time. With only a few exceptions, realistic games are boring. They're not as fun because you have to rely on realism and stiffness. Whilst games that could maybe be realistic in storytelling, you can be fine with that, but when it's gamey, it's just gamey as games can get. They're great fun, in my opinion. They're how it should be, because then it doesn't detract or take anything away from the game. And it's not about the immersion, because I'll be much more immersed in a game that's fun and I'm enjoying as I go through than one that's just super heavy, realistic and stiff. It's why I don't like Uncharted 4, because they completely abandoned the fun, snappy gameplay for stiff realism, and the game just suffers for it. It doesn't matter how good the story is, the game itself is something I never wanted to touch again after I was finished.
None the worse for wear.
Bring on the next one.
Or the fact Last of Us, I sold my copy of Last of Us in the end because the story was great, but I knew I was never going to go through it again because the gameplay was too bad. And I'm not even going to bother with Last of Us 2 because I know at this point it's just what Naughty Dog are going with. I said, don't get me wrong, I have every respect for Naughty Dog. They make amazing stories. I just think the decision they've made on gameplay is a bad one. Good old director, Drunkman or Dunkelman, whatever his name is. I'm sorry, I've been very disrespectful, but I just honestly can't remember his name. I think it's like Neil Drunkman, I might be wrong. He makes good stories. I just disagree with him making flat out good games, because the gameplay is not fun in any of the games he's directed so far. It's been too realistic and stiff. It's why I hated God of War as well. For an action game with hack and slash elements with it, it was really bad if you wanted to play an action game for it, because they put realism over everything else, and it just wasn't fun. The story was fine, if generic, and the boss fights were great. It was just everything else was just it just kind of didn't sit well with me. Especially because the RPG elements didn't care for anything. I put everything into my strength and nothing into my defense, and I still did barely any damage if anything was one level higher than me, and took barely any damage if I was one level above everything. The stats felt like they were not as honest as they made out they were. I felt like when your stats boosted your overall level, it was your overall level that it was looking at, never your actual stats. Your stats were just the numbers that were there. Because realistically, if I'm putting everything into my damage and putting nothing into my defense, I should be a glass cannon. But it never felt that way. It still felt like I was at the mercy of what it was. Even if it was stuff equal to my level, it felt like I was doing average damage, taking average damage. It didn't feel like I was taking a beating or serving one out. It felt very much, well, if your overall level 4 is the opponent's overall level 4, well, now you're doing neutral. Doesn't matter if you've got like 200 points in your physical damage and like 6 in your defense. It's just how we're going. Obviously, I don't know if I do. There's probably like a small difference you notice, but if it's that small that I didn't notice it at all, then what was the point? Why give me such freedom if it means nothing? Sort of thing. And why put all these RPG elements in a hack and slash anyway, when all the previous God of Wars did perfectly fine without it? It's also the same reason I never wore any of the heavy armor. I always wore light shit that just boosted all your stats but defense. Because like from very early on, I was like, no, this is a hack and slash. You get good at hack and slashes by taking a beating and being put under pressure. So I'm not going to put anything into defense, because that would just be giving myself reason to be worse. So I'm not going to do that. And then I realised I was taking nothing anyway, unless there was a level difference, and suddenly I took everything regardless. And regardless of how much I put into my damage, it just didn't matter. It was just stupid. But enough about ranting about stupid decisions in video games and putting realism first. I know that's not everyone will agree, and if you disagree, that's honestly on you. I'm not gonna turn here and say no, you're wrong and all that crap. I'm just saying I personally don't like it. If you don't like it, that's cool. Well, if you do like it, I mean, that's fine. It's no hair off my chest. It really doesn't matter. You do you. It's just not my thing. Now, don't get me wrong. Realism in video games has a place. It's just not in the games they choose to put them in nowadays. Is the thing that when Telltale, before they went bankrupt from Idiocy, like their realism in games made sense because it was a very, very story-driven game. It was 99% story. The gameplay was definitely an aftertouch, so to speak. The gameplay was just to take you from one piece to another. It wasn't to. Oh, by the way, Prompto gets kidnapped here.
Hey, you alright? Over here.
Anyway, I said it made sense to like things like The Walking Dead and whatnot from Telltale, because the gameplay was just a tool to get you from one story piece to the next. It wasn't its own beast whatsoever. You literally just walked from A to B.
This place is literally the worst. Why did it have to be a snake? That thing dragged me all the way over here.
Oh, well, you can warp like straight across the bottomless pit, so enjoy that. I think this one I fuck up because I double tapped circle by accident. But yeah, but then Telltale went bankrupt because it was all kind of written on the wall, to be fair. Picked up 1,000,001 properties, gave very little respect to their developers. Had too many demands, too many things going on. Never tried to revolutionize the formula, just copy and pasted the formula on everything. Despite the fact everyone else was trying to revolutionize the formula, like Life is Strange and whatnot. It was just asking to fall apart. But the fact that they're not that they haven't paid severance pay yet, and yet are still looking out for new publishers, it's just greed. It's just horrible, as far as I'm concerned. And I really hope like the suit goes through and they lose that, because Telltale, if the higher ups that determined. It's like, yeah, we'll keep the property going, but we won't pay all the people severance pay that we cut off because of bankruptcy, and on the excuse of we got the money to pay the severance pay, sort of thing. And suddenly they've got the money to try and make new deals with people. Fuck off. That's just stupid. That's just greed. And that winds me up nowadays. Like the amount of, I know I'm going off topic again. I really should be talking about Final Fantasy 15, but this cave is very linear at the end of the day. I'll talk about the boss when we get to it. But the amount of greed in the industry nowadays kind of just hurts my soul. And like, don't get me wrong, there's been a number of them that I've known ever since I was a kid. Like, even when I was like 6 or 7, I knew EA pumping out a new football game every single year was greed, because I knew even back then nothing was changing between each game, or if there anything that was changing, the stuff that they were claiming was brand new was either stuff that added to the greed, or stuff that was previously in a feature, they took it out and now are adding back in and acting like it's brand spanking new. Like career modes and all that crap nowadays, where they say, oh, playing a brand new story. It's like first time ever. Like I think it's like a few years ago they introduced a story mode sort of thing, and it's like, I'm pretty sure 2002 or something like that had a story mode in it, but whatever. And then they have the whole gambling bullshit that everyone knows about, yet they're still adamant it's not gambling, even though you're paying real money for randomized content. Doesn't matter if you can't cash out, it's fucking gambling, you greedy whores. Sorry, I have no respect to EA whatsoever. I respect like other companies that do dodgy things but make an effort to redeem themselves, but I have no respect for EA. They're just assholes. But it's like, and then they have that new thing where it's like, they have that new thing for the new FIFA game that they advertise, because I work in a supermarket, and they outright advertise it on the game box saying, be a part of the ultimate team where you spend points to buy random players, and it's like you spend real life money to get points to spend on it. Fuck off. Anyway, changing the subject, here's Naga. Regardless of what you say, you're fighting this guy, girl, thing. So just kind of roll with it. It's gonna ask where its baby is, and if you say you find it, if you say you know where, it says, yeah, I'm looking at you. And if he says I can't help you, so fine, I'll make you it.
Bring it on.
Naga is level 30 with 30,700 HP, strength stat of 3,400, vitality of 102, spirit of 126. Its weapon affinities is 100% for everything except great swords and daggers, with both of them being 20% extra. Your elemental affinities is 50% on fire, 120% on ice, 100% for lightning, and 50% on light. It is resistant to death but not immune to death, so you can instant kill it if you somehow, which you shouldn't, have access to instant kills. Also worth noting, a point of interest, is that it is capable of self-destruction. It's very unlikely to do it, but it is capable of doing it, so if it's on very low health, it might just self-detonate and try and kill you all in one fell swoop. And also, as you saw, it can inflict Toad on you, which just makes you unable to really do anything for a short while. This is a pretty easy boss though, so you shouldn't worry about it too much. You'll be dead before you know it. Case in point. Because it keeps on mentioning its baby, but I'm actually curious to see if you can find it. I don't think I've ever looked into it to see if you can find it's the Naga baby.
Something about her baby.
Either that or I'm just getting something, but oh well. But that being said,
Do you guys see anything?
we are now done with this dungeon. That was the dungeon boss, so we can now finish off the trial of Ramuh, or Ramuh, or however you want to pronounce it, depending on whether you pronounce the H or not. Get the last shard, or the rune stone, and get access to the second of the 6, get access to Ramuh. Which initially is a pretty cool visual flair of a cutscene. I mean, look at that. And we now get to see that, yes, Luna did also reach out to Ramuh to make sure that he knew that the king was coming. And he needed to help him. Mark of the Fulgarian. And unlike the optional dungeons, as soon as this little bit finishes, it will actually offer us to return to entrance.
Some gods are friendlier than others, I guess.
But not all of them. Poor Luna.
Perhaps you'd better console her in person.
Yes.
Boat right away.
Lose that scowl along the way.
Right, that's one of the two major objectives that we needed to be done before we can open up the rest of the world again. The second is getting our car back. The Regalia is still in Imperial hands, unfortunately, but now that storm's passed, the Imperials will be moving around again because they wasn't going to travel through a storm, which in case they're going to show right now. Look at that thing.
Way bigger than the last one we saw.
And we're also going to get a call from Cindy, in which she'll inform us the Imperials do have the car.
Well, I found her, but she's at a base.
Yeah.
Now, I can handle garage folk, no problem. But sweet talking the Empire? That'll take some doing.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah?
We'll figure it out.
You sure?
There's an Imperial base to the west of us that will be infiltrating next time, Metal Gear style, to try and get our car back.
I just did.
And did she have any choice words for you?
Yeah. The Regalia's at an Imperial base.
Oh boy.
Yeah, oh boy.
One question.
When are we getting it?
Do we retrieve her?
I'd say now.
Also, it's giving you a new tutorial on Royal Arms here of all places. But anyway, next time on Final Fantasy 15, we'll be taking on the Imperial Stronghold in the sky to be getting our sweet, sweet ride back. But until then, you guys take care now.
Thank the Thunder God for buying us some time.
But that time is running out.
Yeah, let's run in and ride off.